Time doesn't work that way. Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Face it, you need a new reason to rewatch all the Marvel films. This time you can watch them in true chronological order, which, trust us, turns out to be really complicated. The Binger has worked through every scene of the MCU and all the Easter eggs to get the best viewing order for you die-hard Marvel fans.
I'm always picking up after you, boys.
We've even placed the Eternal and Black Widow in this order as a special little treat. The Eternals, Ancient Greece. See, we weren't kidding about including some of the latest projects from the MCU here. The Eternals is a hard one to place because of what we know from their comic book history. There's a huge timeline they span, and the storyline could start at any point. We like to think that the major plot line will focus on a time before modern technology. We're going with ancient Greece, but reports show it being even further back in the creation of the universe. It's a safe bet that the film will conclude in modern times, but don't hold your breath is all we're saying. The Eternals are likely to be the oldest heroes in the universe. Captain America, the First Avenger, 1940s. If we went by when the film starts, then this Captain America film would be way up in the modern era. However, we are basing this whole list of where the major storyline begins. In Steve Rogers' debut film, the majority of the movie is set during World War II. You can expect a quick flash forward in the beginning of Steve Rogers being discovered and then another one at the end when he finally wakes up in the present day. Those two scenes throw a wrinkle into this film, but for the most part it takes place in one era, making it the current oldest film in this new fantastic Marvel watch order. Captain Marvel, 1990s. Despite being one of the newer films in the pantheon of the MCU, Captain Marvel needed to be set in the past to cover her impact on S.H.I.E.L.D. and the wider universe. Pretty soon, Carol Danvers will work as the official bridge between the galactic Marvel heroes and our friendly neighborhood Avengers. Watch this film with that in mind, and we promise it helps with appreciating it. We know it's set in the 90s thanks to the blockbuster and Radio Shack jokes, not to mention all the grunge on the soundtrack. Her film quickly explains the Tesseract's location immediately following Captain America, and the post-credits makes an endgame hint way earlier in the order now. Iron Man, 2008. Here we are, the granddaddy of them all, Jon Favreau's Iron Man. So sure, in this order, Nick Fury's post-credit announcement holds less weight because we know more about the previous heroes, but think more about it. Captain Marvel sets up Fury's idea for the Avengers. S.H.I.E.L.D. was simply waiting for a new superhero to emerge. Lo and behold, here comes Tony Stark to bring out the new wave.
I am Iron Man.
It gives more weight to the side scenes in the film that set everything on the track to success. Coulson matters more, the arc reactor makes more sense, and even Tony's connection with his father gets fleshed out a little bit earlier now. The Incredible Hulk, 2008. Star Wars and its machete order cuts out Phantom Menace from their special flashback order. We're not going to be that cruel and cut the Incredible Hulk from our watch list. However, you might be wondering why we've placed it before Iron Man 2. Conventional wisdom states it happens after it in the watching order. Well, that's just not right. The film starts out around March of 2008. Some even argue Banner is in Brazil 1 year before he's found, making this film ahead of Iron Man in the timeline. We don't know about that, but we know for a fact that his battle in New York is shown in Iron Man 2 in past tense. Thor, 2010. Now, Thor is a little harder to pin down. Agent Coulson heads to New Mexico during Tony's house arrest scene. That means the team of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents we see halfway through the movie show up at the same time Iron Man 2 is happening. However, Thor loses his hammer after some time in Asgard, which means the film starts a few months earlier. Tony races in Monaco in late May because the race is always scheduled around that time. It's argued that Thor loses his hammer in late April of that same year, making his story start just a little bit earlier. Trust us, it's almost the exact same time, but Thor goes just barely first.
Who are you?
Iron Man 2, 2010. We also placed Thor before Iron Man 2 in the watch order because everybody always meshes Iron Man and the sequel so close together. We wanted to space out our Tony Stark moments. Theorists always assume that the map in the S.H.I.E.L.D. scene means Hulk and Thor happen right as this movie is happening, but it's not the case. Doing the order correctly allows you, the viewer, the chance to enjoy the second Iron Man in the time it happens. Stark's been Iron Man for some time at the start of the film, and that time needs to be felt. Here we've given Iron Man 2 what it needs to stand from the first movie. The Avengers, 2012. Moving from Iron Man 2 into the Avengers carries the weight of Stark being rejected for not being a team player. It's fresh on your mind when you watch this crew of mismatched heroes attempt to join together for the first time. On top of that, it makes the build to Captain America returning feel more important. He's been on the sidelines much longer in this order. The order before this will always highlight the whole team before jumping into things, but this way, the villainous plot from Loki and Thanos don't immediately follow Thor's movie. This order avoids that copycat villain effect incorrect orders created. Here, Loki gets a one-movie buffer before returning. Iron Man 3, 2013. It might feel like we're getting a lot of Tony Stark now with only the Avengers in between, but trust us, Iron Man 3 follows the Avengers best. It takes place in Christmas of 2013 and even has a few flashbacks to an earlier New Year's party. It gives us a solid point to understand where Stark is after Avengers saved New York. Tony is hung up on the stress and foreboding going through the wormhole caused him. His whole story arc is about his ability to overcome that trauma and grow as a hero. Putting that right after the Avengers not only fits in the timeline, but fits thematically as well. It's the perfect fit. Thor: The Dark World. Again, we're building off the consequences of the Avengers in this movie. Jane Foster was abandoned by Thor when the Bifrost broke, and Dr. Erik Selvig's mind was broken by Loki. The story starts with Thor cleaning up the disorder caused by Loki's Avengers scheme. However, the main plot gets going when Thor reconnects with Jane Foster in London. It's the rainy season in London, which means it's any time really. It's always raining in London, apparently. The director said it's roughly 1 year after the Avengers. We like to imagine it's the early months of 2014 when Thor comes back and the convergence takes place. Within the timeline, it feels the most fitting guess. Captain America: Winter Soldier, 2014. The beautiful parks of Washington, D.C. and the busy malls and public places that feature so heavily in Winter Soldier make it clear the film is set in the summertime. Well, that and the fact that the director stated clearly that the film is set during the summer months 2 years after the events of the first Avengers movie. Once the film is in chronological order, it sort of plays out like the final wrap-up of Avengers events. You could almost mark it as the end of an era. The Infinity Stones begin to push themselves into more and more storylines, and S.H.I.E.L.D. goes down in a blaze of glory. Everything changes after Winter Soldier. Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. Guardians of the Galaxy, like most Marvel films we've discussed so far, starts in the past, 1988 to be exact. A young Peter Quill is abducted, and we're told the rest of the story resumes 26 years after that event. We think it's safe to assume that it occurs in the fall of 2014, but it's space, so who knows. It's just our best bet that it's after Winter Soldier. We partly assume this because of the events in the sequel to this film, which we're literally about to get into. Besides that, there's not much else, but we think it fits nicely as a break from Captain America's heavy amount of drama and seriousness. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 2014. We told you we were literally about to get to it. So Guardians takes place after Dark World because the Collector already has the Reality Stone. And Marvel's higher-ups confirmed this in interviews. Then James Gunn states that his sequel happens 2 months after the events of the first film in this soon-to-be trilogy, meaning it happens sometime late in 2014. Given the fact that Ego's planet-swallowing plant thing doesn't receive a response from S.H.I.E.L.D., we can infer that this film happens after the events of Winter Soldier, so 2 months before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 would also likely be before Winter Soldier, and makes for a great double feature. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron is hard to place exactly because the actual time is never stated. What we know for certain is that it's been at least a few months of the Avengers going around cleaning up Hydra out of S.H.I.E.L.D. command sites, which makes it safe to assume that this film takes place in 2015. It also helps to justify placing both the Guardians movies before Age of Ultron as a nice break. Not to mention, both Stark's and Thor's visions hold more weight when these past couple post-credit scenes have helped to build up Endgame. Age of Ultron suddenly becomes the fulcrum point that gives the next half more build-up to Endgame. Ant-Man, 2015. See, even more signs that this second half is straight up building towards Endgame in a more fluid path that respects the timetable. Ant-Man and Paul Rudd give us a lighthearted interjection to escape the grim reality we just got presented with in the second Avengers movie. Now, we know it takes place after Ultron because the new Avengers are already at the facility, hence it's easy to place right here in this order. On top of that, it feels poetic that we start the Endgame arc with Ant-Man this way. He becomes so crucial to the team later down the line. This order gives us some bigger payoffs for Scott Lang. Doctor Strange, 2016. Some of you viewers are going to complain and say Doctor Strange takes place after Civil War. You'll point out the surgery on a soldier with a back injury who might be James Rhodes. You'll even say the Ancient One says in 2012 that Strange will be there in 5 years. Well, just trust us here. Doctor Strange fits right here in this order. He holds awards in medicine dated 2016 in his apartment, which helps us know it's not any earlier. More importantly, Strange isn't a sorcerer yet when we first meet him. The storyline actually starts in 2016. He didn't become the New York Sanctum Protector until 2017. Did we just blow your mind? Captain America: Civil War, 2016. Look! Happy! Civil War happens right after Doctor Strange, so it's not like the two are too far off from each other. We know Civil War is in 2016 because that's when the film was released, but also because of future films and their details. If it really matters, there's a newspaper early on in the movie that gives the year 2016, so maybe that's enough proving? Besides that, Civil War is crucial in this order to show what's up with all our current heroes while introducing the next wave. It's been 2 whole films since Ultron, and feelings are still raw after that story. This is the final fallout before Infinity War. Black Widow, 2016. Black Widow is going to fit so perfectly in this timeline. For some obvious reasons that we won't say here, Black Widow has to take place in the past. Both director interviews and the trailers reveal this takes place after the Avengers disband and Natasha goes on the run. It shows us where she goes after running away in the airport fight. When you go to rewatch her long-awaited solo movie in our correct chronological order, you're gonna appreciate how it helps deepen her backstory. Suddenly, the events of Endgame hold way more importance, and we get a teaser for the future of the MCU in the post-credits scene. Well, we think so at least. Black Panther, 2016. Black Panther was a little disjointed in the release order and made it seem like T'Challa has put off his duty to become King of Wakanda. In reality, the film is set just a few weeks after Civil War, probably around the same time as Black Widow will be set. T'Challa is challenged by Killmonger at this time because the chain of succession is in question. When we put Black Panther back in the scope of Civil War, we understand how important it is that T'Challa reaffirm his position as king and defeat Killmonger. Don't get us wrong, it was awesome either way, but it fits better in the story watching these movies in order. Spider-Man: Homecoming, 2016. We get to start this film off with Peter's amateur documentary of his trip to Berlin and the fight at the airport. The film doesn't get the main story going, though, until 2 months following those events. Oh yeah, that brings up a huge gaffe on the filmmaker's part. There's a title card in the beginning that claims the cleanup is 8 years after the Battle of New York. Here's a fun fact. It isn't. It's just a straight-up mistake made in the movie that was never caught. So, just pretend you never saw that part, right? Otherwise, this whole timeline we've built out would get super wonky. Homecoming's in 2016, alright? Thor: Ragnarok, 2017. After Spider-Man's film, we jumped forward a ways into Thor's journey to learn about the Infinity Stones in Ragnarok. We know the post-credits scene clearly means his trip back towards Earth ends in 2018. However, that's some time after he defeats his sister and loses Asgard to Ragnarok, which we just remembered are major spoilers, so sorry.
You had one job.
Oh, right. You're watching this to learn the rewatch order, so a few spoilers won't hurt, right? Even if you didn't know that, the film is so funny that it's worth watching anyway. The post-credit scene gets you all excited for Infinity War, but we've got to slow your roll down real quick. One film takes place before that epic. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018. Okay, time to admit something here. Ant-Man and the Wasp clearly takes place before Infinity War. Lang is on house arrest for 2 years following the events of Civil War, and the post-credit scene gives us major Infinity War spoilers. With that, we admit that it goes better thematically in between Infinity War and Endgame. It's such a happy-go-lucky film with plenty of humor and action to make it an enjoyable little summer blockbuster. Regrettably, it makes the sadness of Infinity War and Endgame more bearable. We say regrettably because you lose that now that it's in the correct place in the timeline. Now you just have to grin and bear what follows.
Easy peasy.
Avengers: Infinity War, 2018. With films like Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 so much earlier in the process, it makes this build-up way more intense. Also, this means it takes Tony and Pepper more than 2 years to start planning their wedding and get engaged. Stark, buddy, that took you way too long. Of course, there's also the Ant-Man issue. Now, you know the snap is coming at the end, so picture being a first-time viewer and watching Ant-Man's sequel first. Something bad happens and you know it's connected. By that point, you're just waiting for Thanos to win and prove he's inevitable. The sense of dread we've caused in this order is incredible. Avengers: Endgame, 2023. Endgame begins with Captain Marvel arriving on Earth and the direct results of Infinity War impacting our favorite heroes. The fact that we get Carol Danvers over 20 films after we meet her feels more appropriate this way. Her lost time is felt in this order, and she's way less of an easy plot device now. The majority of the films take place 5 years after the events of Infinity War, which muddy the waters now with later film releases. There's a 5-year gap that needs to be filled, and the repercussions of the snap will be felt for many, many more movies to come. That doesn't mean this movie wasn't absolutely incredible, though. Spider-Man: Far From Home, 2023. We're gonna end this official holy grail of rewatching order with Spider-Man: Far From Home. We could address the upcoming films that we know less about, but some of those may also take place in the past, like The Eternals and Black Widow. We're leaving them out for that reason. We find Far From Home to be a great bookend to the journey we all started way back at the beginning of time. Peter Parker is one of the most empathetic heroes Marvel has ever created. Grieving the loss of Iron Man at the 8 months after Endgame helps us accept the new reality the MCU is facing here soon. It really is a fantastic stopping point. What are you waiting for? Try out the order and give us your thoughts. Do you have a different order to watch Marvel movies in? Share it in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Binger to show your support. There's plenty of Marvel content on its way. Get ready.